Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another Celebrating Superman edition of Missing Frames. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. Normally on Missing Frames, we watch all of the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives, but as you no doubt already know, I am a huge Superman fan. So to celebrate the release of James Gunn's Superman, which is finally in theaters as of this past Friday, and it's great, by the way, I've been talking with all of my favorite Superman writers, fans, actors, and more about what makes this character so special. In my last episode, I spoke with Tom King, the brilliant human being behind Superman Up in the Sky. I've also spoken with the likes of Mark Waid, Dan Jurgens, Jason Aaron, and so many more. Too many more to name, but go check them out wherever you're listening to it. Literally, if you just scroll through all the episodes, all of my recent episodes are Superman interviews. They won't be hard to find. Definitely share them with your super friends. Leave a review if you want. You can subscribe if you like all this nonsense. And really, seriously, I am so appreciative of those of you who have been sharing this stuff, writing reviews, sending me messages and kind comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you. So I have a confession to make. Are you sitting down? Okay. My favorite ongoing comic book run of the past few years has not been Superman related. I know, right? Blasphemy. But no, my favorite current comic book is actually Fantastic Four, written by Ryan North, who's been working on the book since, I think, late 2022. I've been a massive fan of this run pretty much since I started reading it a couple years ago, and I was beyond thrilled when I heard that Ryan would be hopping aboard the Summer of Superman train with a limited 5-issue special entitled Krypto the Last Dog of Krypton. Now, not only was I thrilled because Ryan would be writing a crypto story, but now I had the perfect excuse to bring him onto my show and geek out about Superman, super dogs, Fantastic Four, Kurt Vonnegut, computer science, Star Trek. Is there anything we don't talk about in this conversation? You will have to listen to find out. Anyway, if you haven't already checked out Ryan's work, you seriously need to. I'm not kidding. His Fantastic Four run is one of the absolute best. Not only that, his first issue of Krypto, it's everything I wanted it to be. It's everything I needed it to be, and I can't wait to read the rest. So let's go ahead and celebrate Superman with Ryan North.
Now available to own on video cassette.
Ryan, we're here. We did it.
We made it. We accomplished the task.
We went all the way to our computers, turned them on, and here we sit.
The word hero gets thrown around a lot these days, but I think in this case it applies.
It applies for sure. And when I started thinking about, I'm a massive, massive Superman fan, and I started thinking about
I've heard of him.
You've heard this. You've heard this.
I've heard of Superman.
I thought you heard of my love for Superman, and I was like, wow.
No, just the man himself.
You're like, I may have heard of you and was warned by many people not to do this interview, but I early on was like, I got to think of a way to celebrate this movie and just find a way to funnel my excitement into something proactive. So I was thinking about the list of people I wanted to talk to, and meanwhile, behind the scenes, I am telling everybody I know that, you know what? I'm not the biggest Fantastic Four fan, but I think my favorite comic book right now is Ryan North's Fantastic Four run. And I've been singing this run's praises for however long. How long has it been going on now?
It just ended with and started again with a new number one. So it's been going on for 2 days as of us talking. But before that, it was since 2022.
I think I probably started reading in maybe 2022, 2023. So I've been singing the praises of this incredible book for so long. And it felt like something in the universe heard me, because then all of a sudden it's announced that you are going to be working on this limited series, Krypto the Super Dog. And I was like, this is meant to be. This was meant to be. Like, if I could ask the master of the universe for anything, it's like, how can I take the gentleman behind my favorite comic and bring him into Superman so I have an excuse to chat with him? This is it, and it's happening now.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and also I'm so sorry. But I wanted to talk about how does it feel to, like, you've got your foot in both worlds right now. You've got the Superman movie coming out. We're talking the day before the official release date.
Yep.
And then we've got Fantastic Four in a couple weeks. You're like in both worlds. How's that feeling?
I mean, it's unexpected. I didn't machinate this to make it happen, but someone messaged me on Blue Sky being like, you told me 10 years ago the Dinosaur Comics guy would be doing tie-ins to the Fantastic Four and Superman movies, and I'd be looking forward to both of them. I wouldn't believe you, but I'm happy that it's true. And I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of stumbled into that.
And how did you? I guess. Well, I was stumbling around and reading stuff about you and trying to figure out, like, what am I going to ask? What are we going to talk about? And I found this incredible Globe and Mail article that is a choose your own profile.
Yes.
And I was going through this. I died many times. You murdered me a couple times.
Yeah.
It's
all based on a true story. So
it's all based on a true story, as I understand it. Who came up with this idea of choose your own adventure? From what I understand, you were adapting Shakespeare plays into a choose your own adventure format.
Yeah, but it was Mark, the interviewer's idea, and he did such an incredible job. Because it's so interesting to sit and be interviewed for a interactive thing like that, because you can talk about a bunch of things, but then you have to find your way to those stories in the process.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I did To Be or Not to Be, which was an interactive version of Hamlet, and then I did Romeo and or Juliet, which is of course Romeo and Juliet done in a choose your own path adventure game book format. And I love them. What I love about them is that Shakespeare is a ridiculously canonized author. He's the greatest author in all of English history. That's how he's considered. That's his reputation. And interactive game books are the very bottom of the prestige heap. Like, second person, do you want to go to the bathroom? Turn to page 3 if correct, is the very bottom of our cultural prestige. And so marrying the two felt really good.
It felt like something you were building up to your whole life.
Yeah.
You're like, I was meant to bring these two genres together. Do you have a favorite between the ones you've done?
I mean, I like them both for different reasons. The neat thing about it is that not every one of Shakespeare's plays lends itself to this. The great thing about Hamlet and Romeo is that both of those are kind of structured around a quest. Hamlet gets the quest to kill the king, delays a lot, finally does it, game over. Romeo and Juliet are on this quest to get together. They do, and it goes disastrously for everyone. And, that feels like someone making some bad choices and getting to have that blow up in their faces. So they're both structured really well. But like Macbeth, I ended up doing Macbeth as a book within Romeo and or Juliet. And the reason for that is that Macbeth, well, you might think that's a similar structure. Am I going to kill a king? Yes, done. But it doesn't work in interactive format, because what happens next is you feel really guilty about it. And, turn to page 36 to feel guilty isn't a compelling reading experience that much. It works in a small format, not in like a 900-page book. So I couldn't do all of them, but I could do some of them.
So you talk about like gleaning a level of satisfaction, taking Shakespeare and kind of pulling him down to this choose your own adventure level. Was there something satisfying about taking all these characters that are so well known, and was that the motivation for doing it? Were you like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. I'm going to like throw these people into the most ridiculous situations and find creative ways to
The
off
motivation was actually, I was driving home and I was listening to the radio, and there was an old actor doing an interview, much like we are now doing an interview.
Yes, as old actors, we go way back.
And he was talking about how when he was a younger man, you would perform a monologue you'd memorized. And these days, everyone wants to just read their own script so they can see if they like you for the role. And I was thinking, I don't really have any poems memorized, do I? The one I really have is To Be or Not to Be. And so I was turning the To Be or Not to Be speech over in my head and realized it was structured like a choice. Pretty basic observation, but this is like the Choose Your Own Adventure books I used to read when I was a kid. And then the whole thing is like, all right, you can have multiple playable characters, and it was all there, but I was still driving home. I had 2 hours to go. And so I spent 2 hours getting really excited for this book idea. And then when I got home, first thing I did was Google it, see if someone had done it. Thankfully, they hadn't. I was like, all right, I get to write this book.
You'd think people would be jumping all over this idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the hard part is when you're writing, it takes a year and a bit, 2 years. And so the whole time, you're like, I hope no one else thought of this idea 3 weeks before me. But it worked out.
This is gonna be a very hard interview because I'm so fascinated by this. But like the whole, I coaxed you onto here to talk about Superman. But as I said, Fantastic Four, I love that. And then literally as we were emailing and setting up the schedule for this, I realized that you were the one who adapted Slaughterhouse-Five into graphic novel form, which
Yeah.
I had seen. And I'm a massive Kurt Vonnegut fan. Slaughterhouse-Five is one of my favorite books.
Mine too.
And I think that's like it made me nervous to
Oh, yeah.
pick up the graphic novel. I can't imagine what you felt like.
It's not a book that says, oh, I would be easily adapted into graphic novel format, like at all. And the funny part was Albert Montes, the artist, also believed it couldn't be adapted. And when he saw the script, he was like, all right, maybe we can do this. And Albert's great. He's such a talented cartoonist. But the thing with Vonnegut, the thing with Vonnegut is that he's great. The other thing with Vonnegut is that he will often tell you the gist of a conversation, but not what was actually said. And that works like gangbusters in prose. But in comics, you kind of want to see what's being said. You want to put everything in narration boxes. And so what I did was I imagined I was a comics editor, and I commissioned Mr. Vonnegut to write a book for me, a comical book, graphic novel. And he showed up with his prose manuscript. He misunderstood the assignment. And I was like, Kurt, I'll fix it. Don't worry. And so I tried to make it feel like it was a text that had been born in comics originally, that was indigenous to the medium. So anywhere I could do something that you could only do in comics, it was something I tried to do to make it feel like when you finish this book, you wouldn't say, wow, what a great graphic novel adaptation of a pre-existing prose novel. You'd say, wow, what a great comic.
Right.
It would feel like it was meant to be a comic. There are places where it worked exceptionally well. The Tralfamadorian book, Vonnegut describes as a series of images urgently described, perceived all at once. I'm like, that's a page of comics. That's what he's describing as comics. And so I turned the Tralfamadorian book into a Tralfamadorian comic book, and you could experience it as the Tralfamadorians do. And there's stuff like that just felt like maybe if Kurt had read a few more comics growing up, this might have been a graphic novel in the first place. So it was real, honor and joy to get to adapt, and pleasure too. And the funny thing about Slaughterhouse-Five, the graphic novel, is that when I read it, even though my name's on the cover after Kurt's, I'm always like, man, I wish I could write a book like that. It doesn't feel like my book. And so when people commented, I'm like, yeah, isn't that great? Isn't it a cool book? Well, people comment my own books, I always like, oh, it's okay, I'm shy, I'm Canadian. But for that, I'm like, it's great. It's really cool.
Well, it's like you got to kind of, I don't want to say breathe new life, because that suggests there wasn't life in it already. And there's plenty of life in Kurt Vonnegut's books. But what you did is exactly what you suggest, which is interpreting it in a way that is unique to the art form, that gives it that life in that art form.
I think adaptations to some extent have to argue for their own existence, at least initially, because we've all read bad adaptations, and then we think, well, what is the point of this? Like, what are we trying to do? And so what freed me was keeping in mind that the original prose novel would always be there. I'm not replacing it. So can we create something that both exists alongside the prose novel and also exists if you haven't read the prose novel, and can still stand on its own? And that's kind of a tricky thing to do, but I found it, what I've heard from people, it's been great. People who have like reluctant readers or maybe bounced off the book. Another thing that worked really great in the comics version is that we jump through time a lot in that book. And in text, you have to say, okay, now we're in 1944. But in comics, the color, the costumes, you see in a second where you are. And it's such a more efficient way to get this story across.
I love it. So I want to, I guess, ask about what you are obviously a major science fiction fan. Growing up, was that something you gravitated towards from a young age? How did you get into that genre? And then simultaneously, like, was comics was that in the picture, or was it really just like focusing on literature and fiction itself?
Yeah. So yes, on science fiction, no on comics. I read a ton of like short story collections of science fiction, golden age sci-fi. So much so that, I read a bunch of Isaac Asimov, and if you are a little guy reading a bunch of Isaac Asimov almost exclusively, you start to think that's what stories look like. But Isaac Asimov, his stories, they're great, big ideas, but they're all like two scientists, usually men, discussing a problem, and then they solve the problem, and the story is over. So then there's a robot that's involved in the program, but there's not. The characters are so thin, and it took me a while to sort of learn that characters were important because all I cared about was the big ideas, and like I couldn't understand why anyone would read something that wasn't science fiction, because science fiction told you what the future was going to be like, and don't you care about what the future is going to be like? I didn't really understand that, like, when you're writing an episode of Star Trek TNG, your main goal is not to predict the future. Your main goal is to tell a cool story. I thought it was both. I thought like they had a whole process to plot out what the world would be like in the future because it felt so lived in, it felt so real. So I was very much a fan of sci-fi, but I lived in a rural area outside of Ottawa in Canada, and there was no comic book stores. This is before the internet. And so I didn't really read comics until I graduated high school and got a job and remember my first paycheck. Went to a comic book store in the big city of Ottawa.
What prompted that? Like, as somebody who didn't grow up with comics, I feel like that, it is something that even today, well, maybe not so much today, but certainly like there is a stigma surrounding comics that it's like once you're fully grown, you're in college. It's like,
it can be challenging. Like, I'm like in Ottawa, and this was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. The comic book shop was right next door to the pornography store. And the porn store had a woman in a bikini in the window, and the comic shop had She-Hulk in a bikini in the window. You have to be careful which door to go in. But also, it's a challenging place. Like,
easy to get confused.
It always felt like walking into getting your car repaired at a mechanic, where I'm like, I don't know anything. They're gonna ask me a question, I won't know what the answer is, and I look like a big idiot. So it can be challenging. But what attracted me was I had I'd seen the Justice League cartoon, I'd seen Fantastic Four stuff. Like, I had this vague interest in the characters, and I had a vague interest in the medium. I was frustrated by newspaper comics. I could read those, but they were 3 panels, black and white, very, very safe, very, very milquetoast. And I think I wanted to see more. And, grabbing books at random, I gave myself an education in comics and saw a lot more and got very excited, very much into it.
What were the comics that kind of opened your brain to like, oh?
I can tell you the first 3 I bought. Actually, that's not true. I can tell you the first 2 I bought, because I bought 3 books initially. One was Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller, Lynn Johnson. Not Lynn Johnson, Lynn Varley. Lynn Johnson does For Better, For Worse. I would like to read Lynn Johnson's version of Dark Knight Returns. So that's like a classic of superhero fiction.
Right.
The other was a book by Paul Dini and Alex Ross. It's almost a picture book called Superman, Peace on Earth.
Yeah.
And it's got these big, beautiful paintings, and the story is Superman being like, I'm Superman, I should be able to solve world hunger. So he tries to do it, and he fails. And I never thought that you could have a Superman story like that was realistic and grounded, and also like, he can't do everything. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
And the third book was no good, and I forget what it was, but like 2 to 3 is pretty good.
As far as Superman himself, was that the first time you really connected emotionally with the character, or what are your earliest memories of Superman?
Yeah, I think that'd be it. My earliest memories were I watched the Batman cartoon, the Bruce Timm show, and it was great. And then I watched the Superman show, and I was like, this is not as good as the Batman show. I want to watch the Batman show.
I know. I bet that's one of the hardest things I've had to come to terms with. I love them both, but it's like, as a I love Batman, of course, but as a Superman fan, realizing like, damn it, that Batman show really is much better.
Well, that's the thing. The Batman show is stellar.
Yeah.
It's a generational show, and anything in comparison to that is going to be like, well, it's not quite as good. But the Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited shows that came after that were really great, and also involved Superman in that. So, I mean, I like the guy. I feel like he can tell some really good stories about a guy who is never going to let you down, and is always going to keep trying to fix things. Like, that's very pure. That's very universal. But that comic, Superman Peace on Earth, was the first time where I realized that you could do more than just tell stories about him, punching someone until they stop doing crimes. You can actually tell a emotional, grounded story. And that's not to say that they're better stories, but they're a type of story. It expanded what I knew superheroes could do.
Yeah.
To the point of just as comics can do anything, you can almost tell any sort of story with superheroes too. And then you get the advantage of what other genre do you get to have a guy who represents hope and a guy who represents evil discussing problems and punching each other about it? Like, there's a nice cleanness to the metaphors there that you would have to do a lot of work to get in a romantic comedy, for example.
Right. So you were reading comics kind of out of high school, didn't grow up with them, but
No.
I'm trying to understand, like, okay, I pulled this quote because I just think it's so amazing and kind of funny. This is on Wikipedia, so this is legit. It
Oh
says,
boy.
and this is your Wikipedia page. It says, during his academic career, North co-authored 3 papers on computational linguistics.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
even say it.
Computational linguistics. Yeah.
So you were planning this, like, you were studying computer science. You were not thinking about writing as a career necessarily. Was it a hobby? Or like, explain this to me. Like, what was the interest there?
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I applied to university, and I had 2 major interests, which was computer science and writing, and I couldn't do them both. And so I talked to my parents, and I remember my dad telling me that if I studied computers, I could probably write in my spare time. But if I studied writing, I wouldn't be doing computer stuff in my spare time. And also, he said, you make more money in computers, so do computers. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But throughout my undergrad, which was computer science, I did a minor in film, which I loved because it was a very unusual combination. But it was such a great thing to like do all this algorithmic studying in the afternoon and then have dinner and go to a screening and write an essay about the film you saw. And like, film studies is a lot of thinking about film itself, but also stories and characters. And I found it really useful. And in my last year of undergrad, I started my webcomic Dinosaur Comics, which is, I still do it today, same pictures, different words, better than it sounds. And I kept that up through grad school. And when I graduated with my master's in science, I sort of had this choice between using the now 15 years of education I had accumulated since grade 1, or doing comics full time. And to do comics full time, to do Dinosaur Comics full time, all I had to do was fail to get a job. It was really easy to do that. There was no big like quit your day job moment because I never had the day job. I just eased into it. And so to finish my strange secret origin, I did Dinosaur Comics. I still do it today, but it was 10 years into doing Dinosaur Comics that one of my readers, Shannon Waters, had graduated and gotten a job at a comic book company, and they were doing an Adventure Time comic, and she thought, why don't we ask the Dinosaur Comics guy if he wants to write it? So people ask me, how do you break in? I'm like, don't do what I did. If I didn't want to break in, I came through the side door, but if you do, doing your own stuff for 10 years and hoping someone hires you, it works, but it's probably not the fastest way.
How do you make that jump? Like, from doing your own thing to somebody saying, like, Adventure Time is a pretty big franchise. Like, it's it has a following, and like, that's something where you kind of, not necessarily, there isn't the wiggle room and the ability to be creative and do your own stuff and imbue it with your personality. But it's like when you're dealing with somebody else's characters, and especially with something like that had been so established, like, was there any level of hesitation, or were you like, all right, well, this is how I'm going to make that leap to doing this as a career?
Oh, no, it was instantaneous. Well, what had happened was Penn Ward, the showrunner, the creator of Adventure Time, was also a cartoonist, and so we had a lot of people in common. And there was a point early on where he was like, Ryan, do you want to move down to LA and work at Adventure Time with me? And I was like, Penn, I can't. I'm here in Toronto. I can't do it. And so when the comic came up, I was like, oh, yes, this I can do. And we're only a year into Adventure Time, so I already knew the show was great. I knew it had such a sense of depth and breadth. Like, you can do anything with Finn and Jake. They can do adventure stuff. They can do science fiction stuff. They can go back in time. Like, it all works terrific. And so it was very easy to say yes. And also, I'd seen every episode. So I felt confident that would be like, all right, so who's this Finn guy? This dog? Jack? Right. Jake? What's going on with him? So it was a very easy yes. And then, it was the first time. It wasn't actually the first time writing a script for someone else to draw, because I'd done some mini comics with my friend Rosemary Moscow. But it was the first time doing it on a monthly basis. And you learn pretty quick what works.
I was going to say, how was that, adjusting to that?
It was very easy. The artists, Braden Lamb and Shelley Paroline, are both great. And I can tell you, my first script I ever wrote, I was like, all right, this is 6 panels. We've got 3 panels across the top, and then a big panel for the width of the page, and then 2 panels splitting the remaining width. And I had every page laid out like that. And when I got back the pencils, Braden and Shelley had completely ignored those instructions and done something that was way better. And I was like, oh yes, of course, these are the artists, these are the visual thinkers.
Right.
I don't need to give them the bad version. So now I just write, there's 6 panels. Here's what's happening. Here's what they're saying. But arrange the 6 panels however you want. And it sort of was a great lesson how this is a collaborative medium and how a comic script is not the recipe for a comic. It's the starting point for a comic. Get the artist excited to draw it. And they should always feel free to add panels, remove panels, move stuff around. Because mine is not the word of God. I want to make a comic with you. Let's do it together. Let's not make it a factory. Let's have a fun time.
And it has to be that, because that's the way the medium is. It's not exclusively one or the other. It's both in tandem.
I agree, but it's not always like that. Like a lot of corporate comics, you have the writer, the inker, the letterer, the artist, everything. It's assembly line. And I always like it when it feels like we're a couple of pals putting on a show. So I always like to, meet the artists and hang out with them a bit if I can. And it's been great. Like Braden and Shelley and I are friends. My artist on Squirrel Girl, Erica Hudson and Derek Charm, we're pals. Like it's for a while, and it continues to this day. I feel like I've been very lucky in that, Marvel and DC are multinational corporations making money, but they've also been a really great kind of like blind friendship dating service for me.
Right. So when did you make that jump to Marvel? And was it Squirrel Girl? That was the first?
Almost.
Okay.
I did Adventure Time for 35 issues, and then the artists and I were like, we should stop. We don't want to go on a high note. And around the same time, Will Moss, who was my Squirrel Girl editor, had contacted me and was like, hey, do you want to give me ideas for Squirrel Girl?
And what was your reaction to that? Because I'd not heard of Squirrel Girl.
I'd heard of her. I was like, is she the one who talks to squirrels? What is that? So I said, give me the weekend. And during that weekend, I read all the Squirrel Girl comics. There weren't that many at the time. And by the end of it, I knew that I really wanted there to be a Squirrel Girl comic. I really wanted to be the guy writing it. I had all these ideas for her. I had a vision of who she could be. And so sent in a pitch. It was all about Squirrel Girl and Galactus meeting on the moon like they do in that first arc. And Will was like, all right, this is good, but like, does she have a supporting cast? Does she have any friends? I was like, right. Things a writer would do.
Squirrel Girl carries her own comic. She doesn't.
Yeah. So I had to go and invent, Nancy and Koi Boy and Chipmunk Hunk and that whole group. But again, like the nice thing about comics is that it's not a medium you get into to make a lot of money. It's not film. Some people go to film because they want to be rich and famous. There's not people in comics because of that. So everyone who is doing comics is doing it because they love it. And it's a very welcoming and supportive environment in my experience. And that has helped me to I have no formal training in writing. I have a master's degree in science and computers. But the stuff I needed to learn was allowed to be taught to me, and they didn't fire me quickly, which allowed me to learn that stuff.
So when did you get involved with Fantastic Four?
I had done Squirrel Girl for 5 years, and we ended that just before pandemic, and then there was this big pandemic. And
tell me more about this pandemic. What is
it's in the news. It has a Wikipedia page.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll Google it.
Yeah. But in the middle of that, not in the middle, at some point in there, I got an email from Tom Brevoort, my editor of Fantastic Four, saying basically the same thing. Ryan, do you have a pitch for Fantastic Four? And he said, just so you know, we have been talking to other people too, so I can't guarantee you this, which is great to hear because you want to know is this mine or is it mine to lose, or how much effort should I put into this? So I put together a pitch for Fantastic Four, a couple pages, sent it in, and Tom was like, all right, interesting. Gave me some notes back. I answered those notes, sent it in. He gave me some more notes back.
What was the pitch for Fantastic Four?
Basically what it was, I said diners, drive-ins, and dives. With the idea of that being, guy rolls into town, sees a problem, fixes it, rolls on to the next one. I realized afterwards, I should have just said Star Trek. Come to a planet, weird problem, fix it, move on. But it wasn't in front of mind for whatever reason. So anyway, after going back and forth with Tom a couple times, 3 times, I was like, so I've done 3 revisions. Am I doing this? When do I get to find out? And he's like, oh no, you're writing this. Did we not tell you? No, nobody told me. So the interesting thing with that was that Dan Slott was on the book already. He was already going to come off in a couple months. And for some reason, I didn't expect Marvel to do new number 1 for me. So my first issue was going to be Fantastic Four number 692 or whatever. And then it became Fantastic Four number 1. And I don't know. To my mind, a number one feels like a bigger thing than a number 693.
For sure. Well,
And
I mean,
so,
in some ways, from a marketing standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, it's you're putting more behind it. You're saying, here, you want to get this. It's the
yeah,
start of a new thing. We're putting a lot of energy into making sure this is something you're going to want to read and pick up.
yeah. But I had written this, 693 that only starred Ben and Alicia. It's such a bold take for a number one to be like, we're not going to have most Fantastic Four in it. We have two people in a little city, little town, little adventure, and we'll lead into that. But my whole big idea was I can't get you to care about four people or really five or really nine with the kids. I can't get you to care about these people in the 20 pages I have. Like I can do a team scene, but you won't know who these people are, and so you won't care.
Right.
And so the only way through I could see was if we do a focus on each of these characters, a Ben Alicia issue, a Reed Sue issue, a Johnny issue, then when they do come together in issue 4, we'll know who they are and we'll be happy to see them reunited. And also that's the other secret reason is that it gave me a month to figure out who each of these people were.
It's great, but it basically just it sets up the idea of like it is going to be kind of these episodic adventures. And I know like
Mhm.
right now with One World Under Doom, it's kind of become more serialized, but
It's still
for
pretty episodic. Yeah.
yeah, it is. That's true. And I remember picking it up and like again, not. I've always enjoyed Fantastic Four in theory. I've never sat down and read Fantastic Four comics. I've
You
read a
like the
couple.
idea of a stretchy guy and a fiery
Yes,
guy and a
I'm
rock
like,
guy.
yeah.
There's a woman. Yeah.
Roxy punches things, people who can fly and light themselves on fire. That's cool. Like this is all cool. And I'm aware of the comics. I've read a couple of the early ones, and in theory, I am a fan. But never in my life have I been like I've sought out Fantastic Four. And my buddy TC, who I trust implicitly, like one of the early comics he recommended when we first became friends was Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk, and I read that not as a Hulk
Great.
fan, and was like,
Yeah.
this is right up my alley. And so when he told me like you got to read this Fantastic Four, I was like, I don't really care about Fantastic Four, but I trust you, TC. And I picked it up, and I was so struck by that first issue because, like you said, it's a you think Fantastic Four and you're thinking like, oh, the whole family, it's going to be something zany, it's going to have those family antics and and the quips, but it was small scale, it was just the two
Mhm.
characters, and it was very like weird in the best possible sci-fi way, but
Thank you.
so heartfelt in like the way that I absolutely love, like a great TNG episode. Like it was
Mm.
just I immediately connected with your comic. Scratched that itch where it's like the humanity plus the weirdness that I
Oh, thank you.
adore. So I absolutely connected to it right away, and I've loved it. I'm very behind on it. I have not gotten to
I'm
the
not
new
gonna.
series.
There's no test. I'm not gonna be like so.
Yeah, please. Like, I just want you to know where we stand. I get the sense that you were starting to like me, and I didn't want you to say like,
Mm,
"What did you think of the new number one?" And me to be like, "I thought it
sort of
was
thing wouldn't really interest me. I'm afraid.
I thought it was fantastic."
No further questions.
No further questions, but I've been recommending it to everybody. It has that element of sci-fi that I think is missing. Maybe it really hasn't been prevalent in a lot of, at least not the mainstream comics. It does have that science fiction edge that I got from Al Ewing's Hulk run,
Mm,
but mostly I think of comic books and I'm like, oh, it's adventure, it's fun. But you really love to get into that like very granular science. Like when Reed Richards is explaining something, all I was thinking is like, oh, this Ryan guy loves this stuff. He clearly loves this stuff. I have no like I would never think of this stuff in a million years, but I love the fact that you brought that to the table with Fantastic Four.
yeah, I like when it can be real. I mean, I learned this with Squirrel Girl, where it's a superhero comic. She has the proportional speed and strength of a squirrel. So there's obviously some fantasy stuff there, but the computer science was always real. She's a computer science student, and when she's talking about computer stuff, it's all authentic. And the Fantastic Four obviously deal with super science a lot of the time, but there's a lot of room to have actual stuff there. And when you have the actual stuff, I think it makes it that much cooler. And this goes back
Yes.
to like me reading Golden Age sci-fi when I was a kid, where you had these people who had just heard of rotogen rays, or what we'd call X-rays today, and they have a really fervent, if incorrect, understanding of what they do. And so you get these stories that are based on this fantasy X-ray, but from a modern perspective, it's completely wrong and bonkers, but they get cool stories of it. There's one when we first discovered infrared rays. People are like, "All right, so it's light you can't see. Therefore, if you could shine an infrared light on something, it would disappear." And you're like, "Well, hold on a second. That's not that's not quite." But now that you have that idea, a light that makes things disappear, we can do something with that. Like they're using the actual science as a springboard for the story, whether or not they actually understood the actual science. I just love the idea of like reading a story, getting exposed to a big idea that kind of blows your mind a bit, and then as you're still reeling from that, you're still going through the story. That's my favorite experience.
Yes.
There was a FF 25, I think, was Johnny, his love story with Angelica of the Shore.
Oh, I loved it.
And that's based on this proto-planet, early planet Theia, hitting Earth and causing Earth to become Earth. And a lot of people don't know that theory. And so when you're doing that in the story, like, oh wow, I never considered this before. That's really cool. And also, I'm in the middle of the story, and I just feeling like your mind's being blown, I think, is a really fun experience.
Consistently, and that's what's impressed me the most is that every time I read an issue, I'm like, I feel like I'm learning something. I feel so much smarter. It's something that Kurt Vonnegut did extraordinarily well. And what that is you take the science fiction and the big ideas and the science, but you imbue it with this sense of heart and humanity and humor. You do it so beautifully, and I absolutely adore it.
Very flattering comparison. Thank you.
Well, I mean, let's bring it all together. But like, is it blasphemous for me to like basically be using my Celebrating Superman podcast to talk with you about Fantastic Four? Because there is this whole not like wholly invented rivalry. I mean, the rivalry is a fun thing between DC and Marvel, but like, I feel like I want to live in the world where we can celebrate both and enjoy
We can do both. They've met each other. Yeah, I mean, the Fantastic Four have met Superman. They've had interactions in the past, so it's all adjacent, Superman adjacent.
I do need in my life the Fantastic Four meet Superman again by Ryan North. So I'm just putting that out into the universe, and that would be amazing. Let's talk about Krypto, because Krypto is the best boy. What was the impetus of this? Like, what was it the summer of Superman? We want to have a Krypto the Super Dog comic for the movie that people can go out and buy. Was it brought to you? Was it something you were brought in to pitch? Tell me more about this.
Yeah, so I believe they wanted let's have a Krypto comic for Summer Superman. That sounds like a great idea. And they asked me if I had any Krypto ideas, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, I have Krypto ideas. I'm a big dog guy. And my big idea was just like, I've read a lot of Silver Age Krypto comics. In them, he's not really a dog. He's a cartoon character, right? Like you can, he vamps like a cartoon character. Sometimes you can read his thoughts and they're English, like he's thinking like a human mind. And so he's great, but he's not a dog. And for me, the more you could make Krypto like an actual dog, the more real he would seem. And that was my pitch. I'm like, let's tell a story about a dog. And he's a dog who gets lost. He gets detached from his family, and he's all alone on this strange alien world called Earth. And let's do that. And I sort of use as a comparison The Littlest Hobo, which I didn't realize was only a Canadian show. So most of you listeners, and I can tell by your face, you don't know this.
Tell me more.
It's a great Canadian show with an incredible theme song. Littlest Hobo is a dog.
Sing it right now.
Maybe tomorrow I'll find what I call home. Until tomorrow, the whole world is my home. Might be the lyrics.
That's great. But I'm glad. No, I was not expecting you to sing it.
Every stop I make a new friend. It's great. Anyway, it's about this
now
dog.
I gotta watch it.
It's about a dog who travels the rails, and he shows up in a town, and much like the Fantastic Four, there's a problem that a dog can get involved with, and he solves the problem. They're always like, why don't you stay with us? And the dog's like, no, I'm moving on. Going on to the next town.
Were you a fan of the Bill Bixby Hulk show growing up?
Never saw it.
Never saw it, because it is that. The show itself, of course, it's like pure 70s cheese, like TV show. But Bill Bixby, his performance is so good, like so grounded in human emotion. I think it really elevates it. But that was the concept. It was like he walks to town, the Hulk solves the problem, and then he has to move on. He can't
Let's
stay.
move on. Well, he stole it from the Widow's Hobo. Or the Widow's Hobo stole it from the Incredible Hulk. But anyway, in the process of pitching this, I sent the theme song, because it's great, to my editors. I just looked up YouTube, Widow's Hobo theme song, grabbed the link, sent it over, and didn't realize that in the one that this fan had chosen of the hundreds of episodes to put on YouTube, it had a thing that said guest starring Barbara Gordon, who was an actress.
That's great.
And I was like, well, there's a good sign. So yeah, I want to tell a dog story. And I wanted to tell the story of him being lost on Earth and, spoiler for the end, eventually finding his way home to Superboy. And that's what I pitched. And luckily that's what they were looking for. And so we took it from there.
I love that. And it's going to be 6 issues?
5 issues.
5 issues. God,
5 issues.
I think I was trying to manifest 6 because I want as much of it as possible.
Can we talk about like little spoilers for the issue 1 that's already come out?
Let's do it. I'm almost nervous because I'm like, I don't want to know anything.
Have you not read it?
I've read the first issue, yeah.
Oh, you read the first issue, yeah. Let's just talk the first issue. Because that ends that story is a Krypto story, but it's from Krypto's point of view.
Yes.
And so the thing we came up with was when he's paying attention, we have all caps black word balloons. When he's not really listening because he's a dog, it's gray.
Loved that.
But the last page is he comes to Earth and he's lost and he's not being treated very well and he's scared and he's running around, and then he's finds someone who's like, oh, you're lost, aren't you? Nobody loves you. Well, I'll take care of you. What's your name, dog? My name is Lex. And he sees Lex Luthor. So big twist. The story is filling in the blanks of what we had with Krypto's origin, because normally he comes from Krypton through a variety of different means, depending on the continuity, and then kind of like scene missing shows up with Clark.
Yeah. Whenever I bring up Krypto to my non-nerd friends, coworkers, first and foremost, they're like, oh, you're into Krypto? And I'm like, no, Krypto the Super Dog.
Oh, that was my favorite part about this. I'd be like, guys, I'm working on a new Krypto project. And I see their face fall, and I'd be like, Krypto the Super Dog.
No,
and
Krypto
they'd be
the
like,
Super
ah.
Dog. Oh, okay. Phew. Somebody asked me, like, kind of one of my favorite things that when people find out I'm such a big Superman fan, people like to then like, yeah, so what do you think about Clark Kent and his glasses? Do you really think people don't believe it? And I'm like, here's the thing. I don't care. Like, I just don't care.
My thing that convinces me is like, why would they assume he has a secret identity?
There was a great there's a great bit in American Alien by Max Landis, which is like, do people ever notice that you are Superman? He's like, yeah, people have mentioned it a couple times to me, and they just say, hey, you look kind of like Superman. And it's like, yeah, of course. Like, nobody is thinking like, wow, that guy's that reporter who's weird and awkward has got to be Superman in disguise. So again, I don't need an explanation for it. I don't need like any like secret meaning behind it. It's the same thing with Krypto the Super Dog. I think people were kind of like, does he have superpowers? How did he get the super? I was like, well, he came from Krypton. It's
Krypton, an Earth's strange yellow sun.
Right, exactly. It's like, no, he's just, he came from Krypton, showed up, and it's the same thing as Superman. But I'm realizing, like, there isn't, like you said, there are bits and pieces of, like, Krypto came from Krypton and was sent separately and da-da-da, but not, like, necessarily the origin, like the firm, solid, concrete origin story. And that's kind of, I think, where this is headed.
It is. It was kind of an accident, because I pitched like, think of it like in Elseworlds. I just want to tell a nice Krypto story. I don't want to be too tied to continuity. And so I outlined it and I sent it, and the result was them being like, if you change a little bit, this fits in perfectly with current continuity. Like, we could just make this his origin. And I was like, all right, let's make his origin.
Let's do it.
Have you read the original Supergirl comics?
No, I haven't.
They're fascinating because they're so concerned with like nitty gritty of her origin, like what you were discussing,
right?
That it's just completely bonkers, because they've tweaked it since. The original one is that Krypton explodes and Clark's sent off to Earth, but there's a big chunk of Krypton, larger than most, and when the planet explodes, it becomes radioactive, which kills Kryptonians. But this large chunk also had a large rolled up sheet of lead, so we could roll that down on the Earth and then be fine.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, they're like, well, this lead isn't going to last forever, so we should send you off to Krypton to join your cousin, because they know that Clark is there somehow. And it's so deeply strange. And then she shows up on Earth, and Clark's like, howdy, great to see you, but I don't want anyone to know you're here. So you're going to have to secret identity, and you have to live in an orphanage. and here's a wig that you'll put on so no one will know who you are.
Perfect.
And at that orphanage will be a little boy who's going to be kind of your Lois Lane, where he's always going to be suspicious that you're Supergirl and try to trick you, but don't let him do it. It's just like it's so deeply fundamentally weird, but also like very very fun and goofy and a real treat.
As all the Silver Age comics are.
Yeah.
I've been collecting Superman Silver Age comics strictly because of the covers. Like just
Covers
like
are great.
what makes me laugh. Like what is it's just a reminder that like these things, if they're heart, you want the heart to be in the right place. You want the emotion to be real and true, but you also want to embrace the inherent silliness of all of it. And I think it's okay to do that, and you shouldn't be embarrassed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at Krypto and be like, okay, so he's a dog with Superman's powers. That's crazy. That doesn't make sense. Or you can look at Krypto and be like, oh, he's a pet
He's a dog
who's
with
lost.
Superman's powers. That sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
and he can fly, and this is great. Like, who wouldn't want your dog to be able to fly?
Yes.
So I think the best part of Krypto is that he has all the symbolism that Superman does of hope and strength and perseverance and fighting for better tomorrow. But also he's a dog.
Yes.
And it's so adorable. In fact, I'm a bit worried actually because issue 1, I saw people responding to it and being like, I wasn't expecting to cry. And I didn't mean to make people cry, but I realized you have to make people care about your human protagonist or your Kryptonian protagonist. You have to give them a reason to care. But when your protagonist is a dog, people are like, I love him.
Immediate.
Nothing bad should happen to this dog.
Right.
And the only sad thing that really happens is that he gets sent away from Krypton to Earth by mistake. But you knew that's the price of admission. Like, I'm worried that if I'm getting that emotional reaction from issue 1, when some more emotional stuff happens down the road, I'm just going to be destroying people left and right.
No, but in a good way. And like you said, we all know how it turns out in the end. Sorry, spoiler alert, but yes, Krypto and Superman will eventually hang out at some point in their lives. But I think you gotta have stakes. You gotta have those emotional stakes. But what you continue to do with your writing, and why I'm excited, is because I feel enriched by your storytelling ability. I guess enriched is the best way to describe it. I feel like very moved. Not to just spend this whole time just hyping you up, but why not? That's what you're here for. But like in general, you're in the hands of a good storyteller. And for me, the stuff that makes me emotional is not necessarily, of course I'm like, oh, this poor dog. What moved me is the quiet moments of, there was. And it was shown early on, and I showed it to my wife. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the best. And she teared up. She's not a big comic book reader, but it was Krypto snuggling with baby Kal-El. Yeah. Just that panel. I was like, this is going to be really special. I'm very, very excited for it. But for you, and, I don't mean to get so emotional, but do you think this is a way of, you're a dog person, and before we hopped on for this chat, I read your beautiful eulogy to your dog, Noam Chomsky.
Oh, Chomsky, yeah.
I loved that story so much. In a way, do you think this is kind of a means for you to honor him and his memory, like kind of using this as that opportunity?
I mean, there's bits of him in Krypto. The way the first couple pages, they put the food down, they don't let me eat it till they do release, and then he can have the food and he just snorts it up. That's all Chomsky. I mean, I couldn't write this book without having shared 12 years of my life with a dog like him, because I think dogs are very easy to anthropomorphize and very easy to become those sort of cartoon characters that you say, what's that, Chomsky? Little Billy's stuck down the well? But that's not how dogs communicate, and they don't understand English like that. So it's every frame of Krypto I'm drawing on, my experience with a real dog. And I would hope that people love Krypto in the same way that you love all dogs.
Well, so far so good. And I guess there's a challenge to that too. I mean, this is very much like it's from Krypto's perspective. So we're, as the reader, we're hearing the conversations, but Krypto is our protagonist through these stories. What's the unique challenge of that? And like writing something that is driven very much by
silent protagonist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there are places where I'd be like, man, it sure would be great to have this character turn to the camera and say, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. But dogs are very expressive. They let you know what they're thinking all the time by their body language, the way their ears are, their tail, their hackles, the way they're sitting. When Krypto's on Krypton, he's all dressed out when he's sleeping because he's very comfortable.
Mhm.
When he's lost on Earth, he's curled up in a little ball because he's less secure and trying to take up less space. So there's all these dogs are so expressive. There's all these ways that dogs express what they're feeling that I never felt like I was trapped in anything like that, because he's always telling you what he feels. And the nice thing about dog expressions is that they're very similar to human expressions, so we can read them very easily. And they're not shy about. They have no guile. Dogs have no guile.
Right.
At least Chomsky never did. Like if he was trying to get away with something, you would know instantly that there was something up.
Yeah, my dogs are exactly the same way.
Yeah, there's no secrets.
Yes. What's the artist's name?
Mike Norton.
So Mike does a really, really beautiful job of conveying that. Like,
Yes.
I think because it could be hard because it's like, again, like you said, dogs are very expressive, but how do you convey that in art form? And so far it's been so wonderful, and very, very excited to see where it goes. Any teases you want to give?
I will say this: issue 2 is super cool. Issue 3 is super cool.
all right, I'm in.
Issue 4, a little sad. Issue 5, super cool.
Is issue 4 though sad but super cool?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
I think they're all super. I mean, I may be biased. It's impossible to say, but I think it's super cool.
How about Superman as a character? Is that somebody you'd want to write someday? Do you have like if somebody came to you? I mean, this is maybe a silly question, because if somebody came to me and said, Shawn, would you rather write a Superman story or a Krypto story? I feel like as big of a Superman fan as I am, I might be like,
I'd take the Krypto story.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's kind of not a fair question, but is Superman a character that you would consider or like to do someday?
Superman and Batman are the two characters I read first in those 3 books I read. And so they've always, to me, been the most impossible, like untouchable. Like I read them when I was just reading comics, so of course I would never write these characters. And so, yes, we write Fantastic Four, and those characters have been around since before I was born. They go back to 1961. There's a lot of history there, but I'm like, yeah, I can do that. No big deal.
Right.
But Superman, Batman, I'm like, well, that's Superman and Batman. Like, these are big guys. So there is, in all honesty, some trepidation that I would have to get past. I talked to writers who've written Batman and Superman and been like, aren't you afraid? Like, what if you screw it up and you write such a bad story that no one likes Superman and Batman anymore? And they're like, well, A, that won't happen. And B, don't worry about it. So it's a me thing. It's not a Superman Batman thing, but they do have a lot of, I don't know, respect. I'm not sure what the word for it is. Admiration.
Yeah.
They seem bigger than life in the way that other characters don't to me.
So it's one of those, it's a maybe. Maybe someday you'll feel up to the challenge. If it's the thing that sparks, or if you have a story idea that sparks something, maybe someday. I'm just saying that would be awesome. How are you feeling about James Gunn's Superman? Is this a movie that you would be excited to see if you were not kind of like in the world? Are you excited in general for a new Superman movie? And like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know nothing. I've only seen the trailers, but everything in those trailers is like, oh, this is what I like to see. This has Krypto, and Krypto's being a dog. This has all the cool, weird stuff like the Superman robots and the Fortress of Solitude,
right,
being the way it is. And it just feels very much like a Superman movie that is unapologetically about Superman. And I mean, I grew up, as I'm guessing you did too, with, the early X-Men movies where they were ashamed of the costumes and all that stuff, where there's a bit of like, yeah, we're all here for a comic book, but we all know they're kind of not that great. And I never agree with that. I think they are great. I think there's a sincerity and a real heart in the sleeve aspect to all these aspects of these characters. And it's great to see a movie that's like, yeah, this is awesome. Look at this. This is cool. Let's do that. So I'm very, very excited for it.
Nice. And do you have any Peace on Earth? It sounds like is probably your top Superman comic. Are there any others you love that you would recommend for people out there? And Krypto, of course, like they've got to read Krypto, but is there another favorite you're like, you know what, this is the one I think I'd recommend personally?
I mean, I'm going to say Kingdom Come. And I read that very early on in my comic reading career. And it's probably not a book you should read that early because it's steeped in like history. I didn't know who most of these people were. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Now I've been reading it for like 20 years and I still don't know who half the people in it
Yeah,
are.
but you don't need to know it. Like you just have the sense of, even if you're meeting all these people for the first time, the relationship between Superman and everyone else, especially Wonder Woman and Batman, there is so well realized and so real that it doesn't matter that you don't know 60 years of continuity. You can just read this story and have a really great time. It's beautiful. It's kind of the opposite of Peace on Earth, but also really, really good.
Mm.
And Alex Ross, that kid's got chops. I think he's going
Yeah,
places.
he's gonna go far, I think. Yeah. And then, what do you think? This is like, I guess this is the $1,000,000 question. But Superman's been around for almost 100 years now, and we're still talking about him. We still care about him. Why? What do you think it is about Superman that makes him so special? That makes us love, like, just embrace that character so much?
I think it comes back to something we were talking about earlier, where here is a guy who is always going to do the right thing. He's never going to let you down. He's never going to say it's too hard. He's never going to be like, well, I'm real sleepy. It just is a sense of trust there that I think is really nice, really pure. There's not a lot of Superman stories where he's a big screw up that nobody likes, because that's not who the character is. He's a character who sees a problem and then solves the problem as best he can. And that, I think, is really gratifying. I mean, it's a core engine that I've been using for Fantastic Four, right? Like they see a problem, they roll in the town, they see a problem, they try to solve it, they move on to the next problem.
Yeah.
That is a version of Superman in the way sense that most, if not all, superheroes are descended from Superman in somewhere. That's part of this resonant story that still works, that always works. And Superman is the purest instantiation of that, I think.
And Krypto
Is all that, plus he's a dog. Like,
he's a dog.
how do you beat
so
Superman? You make him a little dog.
You make him a dog,
Perfection.
and that's it. Well, Ryan, this has been a genuine treat. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out and celebrating Superman with me, and accidentally, but not really accidentally, celebrating Fantastic Four and Kurt Vonnegut and all the other things too.
Oh, it's my pleasure.